wasn't okay.
That's okay.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Why would I ask?
Teamwork makes the dream work, Jeff.
Very good language.
Yeah, I was gonna look.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
We can talk about Liz Hart stuff.
Alright, so your confirmation out the window. We rock and roll.
Live now.
We're live. Well, people are going to look at this and they're going to say, there's only two people here. What are we doing? What are you guys doing over there?
Right.
The few, the proud, the select board.
That's right. That's right. Indomitable. A little snow, we can be here.
That's right. Total snow.
A lot of food, we can be
Persons.
here.
Alright. Should be good to go.
Okay. I'll call to order the Select Board meeting of Monday, January 8th, 2024. We're meeting here at the Rockport Room at the library. John, do you want to go forward with your town manager's report?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, while there's a lot of interest in the EMS conversation, if you tuned in for that, wait. Come back a week from now on the 16th, well, a little more than a week from now. 16th will be a workshop here. It's really it's a workshop format, so it's really more of a fact-finding conversation for the select board to really get the information they need to take next steps and move forward. It's not necessarily a public hearing on all matters EMS, but it's a good opportunity if people want to learn more about the conversation, what's going on, what's happening out there in the world of EMS that Rockport is being impacted by. That's a good place to do it. I do want to just say a brief section about the article on Village Soup. I wouldn't say it accurately captured where the town is in that conversation and where the board is in that conversation. I'll certainly let the four of you who are here talk to that if you wish, but you know, this is obviously a conversation that has to be done delicately and with as much knowledge and study as possible to make a good decision. There's a lot of money that's on the line in terms of tax dollars, but more importantly, like the safety of our people and ensuring that they're cared for well and that we're putting ourselves as a town in the best possible situation to take care of our residents. And so, you know, I understand certainly the article is written from a perspective of the minutes from last time, which obviously doesn't capture the full breadth of a conversation which has gone back months, if not almost a decade, if you really want to stretch it out. It goes to a study that was done by the Canada and Rockport worked on several years ago with the hospital, and it you know, this is a long journey that is bringing us to a workshop on January 16th. So I think a lot of that will be covered when we come to the meeting the workshop next week. But you know, there are a lot of different pieces to this puzzle, and Rockport is also just one piece of a larger puzzle regionally. You know, town of Lincolnville is talking about it tonight with Northeast. Camden will be talking about it at their subsequent board meeting, and Hope as well. There are a number of towns who are having this conversation regionally, but also, you know, statewide. So this is not being done from my perspective hastily at all. In fact, it's being very carefully done in some cases, maybe too carefully in some cases, because there are things that could be potentially moved forward that would provide these answers and this clarity that would help others make decisions. But unfortunately, everybody has hard choices to make. And so, you know, this board is taking, you know, is doing its due diligence. So anyway, I wanted to say that about EMS generally. We have some work closures coming up. Obviously, we have our safety training tomorrow, which workplace safety, where all the staff for the town will be going through and ensuring that they are working at their video display terminal safely and how to use a fire extinguisher. And these are the things we do to make sure that not only that we don't have accidents and we don't have issues that are claims against our insurance, but also we're part of the SHAPE program, which is a very, very good program that it forces a town like ours to be a step ahead of the game, not a step behind. And rather than dealing with inspections that are punitive, we're taking our level of safety to the next bar, I guess. And so achieving that not only helps us in terms of avoiding claims and thus lowering our rates, but also the reimbursements from insurance. So it's a good program. It's a program that we're going to have to pursue this summer in terms of our resubmitting ourselves into that program in 2024, but that will happen, and this is the first step in that process. There's a couple items on our agenda tonight, the safety mission statement, the EOP, that the board can talk about a little bit later. And then just sort of briefly talking about a few other things, obviously the grant, that's a $20,000 grant from the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation for the Lucas device, which is I know it was impressive, Doc. I'm glad you dropped your papers over such a. But it's a really amazing device that basically automates CPR, and it's quite literally a lifesaver. So that really great work by Chief Beasley and pursuing this. No matter what steps the board takes, this is a great device for us to have, and the ability for us to purchase it from a grant is fantastic. Obviously, storm preparations have gone into effect for Wednesday's storm. We're expecting a lot of rain, a lot of wind. We have obviously a lot of snow on the ground already. Power outages are potentially expected, so we're preparing. We're going to conduct ourselves the same way we did during the Hurricane Lee. I think it was Hurricane Lee. We're going to expect residents, unless it's an emergency situation where life and property are in danger, like a flooded basement. That's a 911 call. But if you see a tree down on the road, if you see something that's that storm drain seems to be flooded, we're asking you to call the fire department and use that fire department number as a way to reach out. We're going to have staff. Jason is away bringing his daughter to college this week, so Megan, as our deputy EMA director, will be manning the phones and dispatching with Brandy, our very capable public works assistant. And dispatching. So reaching out to our department heads, whether it's Abby at the harbor or Public Works or a fire department, we're going to have everybody sort of able and around to respond if needed. So that's the plan right now. It looks, as the sort of the forecast says right now, it looks like it's really going to be a storm focused on the morning. So afternoon, it should tail off a bit, but in the morning should be pretty intense. So stay tuned, everybody. We're getting good at this, and not in a good way. A couple things going down at the harbor I want to mention. Obviously, they've had the first night event, which was a huge success. Thank you, Abby. Abby's here just so I could say thank you to her. Not really, but no, it was a really amazing event. I mean, this thing is it's one of the best traditions in Mid-Coast Maine right now, and Abby said over 2,000 people were there.
That was amazing to me.
The humanity going up the photo Abby has of the humanity sort of going up the hill there was pretty cool photo she sent to me. So that takes a lot of work, and it's while it's a relatively short period of time, it's a lot of joy in a short period of time too. And Rockport doesn't have a lot of events that bring the whole Mid-Coast to us to celebrate things. We're trying to sort of change that a little bit on a couple brief occasions, but this one is unquestionably, I think everyone's secretly favorite part of the holiday season. So great job, Abby. Great job putting on that event, and it's again so much fun. And let me thank you to the donors and those who participate to help make that event happen. This is not something that happens because the town government writes a check. We have donors and residents in our town and businesses in this town who want to see these things happen. And so if you're out there and you're interested in supporting an event or other events like this, like we have the Opera House or the Summer Concert Series, reach out to Abby or me or Megan at the Opera House, and we'll be glad to help have you connected with that. Related to that is the footbridge. Obviously, that Sea of Humanity coming up the hill was partly related to the fact they couldn't go across the footbridge. So for those who maybe missed it, it's the footbridge in the harbor has been something that Abby and I have had a really close eye on for the last year plus. I think we really talked about it 2 years ago for the first time, and this fall in particular, whether it's through the variety of storms or what have you, it just seemed as though we'd reached a point of no return with that bridge. I've come to learn that there have been two bridges. There was a footbridge that was previously built. This is the second footbridge, and now we'd be talking about it with this bridge's removal, a third bridge. So I'm doing some more research on that. I know some of the names I need to talk to, but to talk about that history is kind of important as you talk about what's next. So we're working on that. We have some thoughts and have been working with contractors and getting numbers, but more on that to come. And then, of course, related to that, we obviously we have a lot going on. The Harbor Masters building, the bathroom project's underway, so the porta potties are not a permanent fixture right there in front of the bathrooms, but a necessity when you have 2,000 people and no bathrooms inside to use. So apologies for that, but I think that it's going to be a good project and much needed improvement at the Harbor Masters building. Last thing, the kayak policy, we'll maybe talk a little bit about that, but this has been an ongoing, there's sort of an email a week on this, so since the kayak policy sort of came home. And I think from my perspective, and I'm sure maybe more conversation we'll have about this tonight, but it's like anything you start, you see it, and you see what's good and what's bad, and you adjust from it accordingly. So, Abby's here, and so we can talk about that if in terms of Parks work plan. But I think there's a lot of good things that come from that policy. There's some things I think we could do better next time, and there's some consequences. No idea. We had no one involved had any idea about could have come to the fore, but they have. So this is government, and you fix it, and you make it as best as you can the next time you try to do something. So away we go. Had a very good meeting. Eric will be interested to hear about this. So today, we had our assessor, Carrie Leichman, assessing clerk, Rebecca Ewan, finance director, Megan Brackett, and our town clerk, Liz Lowe, met with the Samoset to talk about timeshare billing. And when I wrote this, they hadn't come back from the meeting. So they came back, and I think there actually are a couple different paths that they've talked through that can really dramatically improve our billing situation with Samoset. Carrie is going to check the law, and there's a few things I think that can be done collaboratively. But as Eric, as you said, and you don't have to turn on your mic for this, but a number of different timeshare type scenarios exist elsewhere where it's not as clunky as the situation we have now. And I think Samoset is hopefully open to some of those ideas, and I think we have a good solution moving forward. So fingers crossed at this point, but I think we may be on the path to something that actually could put an end to that misery for the tax collection side of things. So
And an overuse of town resources for a very small amount of revenue.
absolutely.
For those of you listening, it's, we have these timeshares, which means there's 52 weeks, and each of those is an owner period. And to have to send individual tax bills to each of those 1 week periods or 2 week periods is just taking up too much of our town resources. So I'm so happy that they were able to have the meeting, and maybe there's a solution here.
I'm hoping by your next meeting we'll have some resolution. So fingers crossed. But I think we've got some good positive movement ahead. So last thing I wanted to bring up was the Parker Room. So we've been in this space for about a year. Unfortunately, it's about a year ago we had the sprinkler issue at the Opera House. It took some time to obviously prioritize what needed to get done and obviously complete the work. Next month, the contractor will get in there and work on the flooring, the ceiling, tiles, and demolish the curved wall. They're gonna hold on to the tiles so that we could put them back when funds allow, but the number we got from a contractor was about $50,000 to put those tiles back up. So we're gonna hold off on that until we can find someone to help us out with that. But in the meantime, the moving of the dais and trying to open up that space so that just as this space feels, it feels open, it feels inviting, people want to come to meetings here and participate. So that's due to start next month. My expectation is that, well, the work should be completed by the end of March. It might be too soon to say that the meetings will be back in April, but I'd like to think by May, we'll be back to meeting over there, so. Finally.
Great,
It's a long time in coming. but
yeah, well, that's all, sounds like some good improvements, and
That's about it. There's a lot more, but that's about it for now.
okay. Any questions for John? All right, next, we have public input on non-agenda items. Is there any?
The question or just input?
You can ask a question.
I had a question about the sewer billing for Commercial Street for Village of Rockport.
Okay. I don't know if we have the right people here to answer that, but we
Yeah.
can hear the question. I
You wanna
guess if you
up
come
the
over to the
mic over
microphone.
there? Sure.
Yeah. So, we just started getting these bills from the town for water usage for the Village of Rockport. There's 44 people there, for 44 units. and they're
Oh,
being billed.
the complex up there, the multi,
Yep.
yeah.
And we're not hooked up.
Could you,
and-
excuse me, could you introduce
Oh,
yourself?
sorry.
and
Hi,
provide
my
your
name's
address?
Winston Fotenhauer. I
Okay.
own a unit in Village of Rockport, 25 Cabernet Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was wondering if we're not hooked up, how long is these payments going to be continuing for? One, and
For the debt service payment?
yeah, and if we're only going to be charged per hookup in the future, we're only going to get like 4 hookups for that whole place. Shouldn't the association just get charged for the 4 hookups instead of each individual person?
I do think that's a topic that we can't help you much on at this select board meeting. I'm
Okay.
wondering if Megan,
Yeah.
what's the best way to
No,
to get them the
I can
information?
talk
Yeah.
about it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So due to that complex's arrangement, it's one lot, and our ordinance is structured that any lot that abuts the line pays debt service. So that lot,
Yeah.
all of the usage on it was divided up to be an equal user. So that's how that was divvied up,
So divvied up equal user per,
per dwelling. So each of the units has at least one equivalent user, unless you have enough bedrooms to warrant 2 equivalent users, in which case you would get billed for the 2 equivalent user usage for a debt service.
that I guess what I didn't understand is how the billing was taking place. So if, say, you had a 100-unit place and one owner, you would get charged for 100 rent rooms? or-
If you had enough bedrooms in an establishment to warrant 100 equivalent users, then yes, you would get 100 equivalent users bill times the debt service for those 1 equivalent users.
And my last question was, for the standalone units and the, a couple units that have more than one in there, there's only one hookup for the building for the sewer? Would that be,
So right now, that's just how debt service works. If you wanted to tie up, like, if you wanted to tie in, then one could do it, or the entire establishment could operate. Now, I do know that they were looking into the entire system, tying into it. I don't know where that has gone. I don't know if the cost was too much.
yeah, I don't
But
think
I
they've
do
gone
know
for it.
that was in the discussions at some point. But right now, if a sewer system were to fail, depending on where your location is, you might not be forced to tie on per our ordinance.
Yeah.
But the debt service is still a debt service.
Okay.
Even lots that exist, just to put this in another perspective.
No, I
that
get
have
it.
nothing on it.
Anybody,
Yeah.
everyone who abuts the property.
Correct.
Yep, I got you.
Okay.
I was just wondering if it was per hookup or, but if you have a lot with no land on it, it would be,
One equivalent user for a debt service. So if you've got a vacant land, you'll pay the equivalent of 1 debt service fee.
So is this $73 one debt service, or?
I think that would be your quarterly debt service. That sounds about right, yeah.
Sounds right, yeah.
All right, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep.
Yep.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
too.
you. Happy New Year, yeah.
All right. The next item on the agenda is amendments to the agenda, and I have one. After the time this agenda got prepared, we got information on the Weidman Fund and what next steps we can and we could take as a select board. So I've added, that would be agenda item, action item F. And I think, did everybody get did Eric and Kim?
I'm not sure where all that came in, so I
Okay.
can send it off. The short sheet,
Yeah, the short sheet.
I'll send it. If they haven't gotten it, I'll send it.
Did you guys get anything from John on that? There's a short sheet that has the revised motion for 150 Park Street and then also adds the agenda item F, Act on Weidman Fund.
I'll send it to them.
John will send it just in,
I have not seen
I
it.
remember seeing it.
okay. We'll send that, and those are later in the agenda, so we can, I think, keep moving if that's all right with everyone. Is everyone okay with adding that, the Weidman Fund?
Oh, to the
The
agenda.
agenda, and then we have a change, a motion provided for us on Act on 150 Park Street property from what was in the original Select Board packet.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, I don't think we have to vote on
Okay.
that, do you? Amendments to the agenda?
No, yeah, you usually
Should we?
do.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add the Weidman Fund discussion and action and add the motion for 150 Park Street? Michael?
So moved.
Okay. Michael, you want a
Guess
second?
I should speak. Yes. I'll second.
Okay.
Pointing doesn't work, does it?
Yes.
Okay, Kim, motion, and Michael, second. Great. Any discussion? All those in favor? And
Yep.
do Eric and Kim have to say yes, or can they just?
Yes, yes.
See?
Yes.
Okay,
Here we go.
great. Okay, moving right along, consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we, how's the wording go?
Let's
I
see.
move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, Michael, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Eric. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then Eric and Kim, you have to say yes.
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 Yes, okay, great. We're gonna keep Jim out. Great, okay. Next, moving on to our action items. Act on committee work plans, Rockport Parks and Beautification. So our packet has the proposed work plan, and Doug Cole, co-chair, is here.
Thank you for inviting me to discuss the Parks Committee 5-year plan with you. In case you haven't seen it before, let me just give you sort of a general overview. The Select Board has this in their packet. The first several sections are our introductory remark, our committee mission, and then the budgetary impact of the committee goals. And this just basically says why the committee exists and what our responsibilities are and who's involved. And I want to just say right up front and thank the Parks Committee members. It's a great committee. We're very active, both at the meetings as well as helping take care of various parks around town, people showing up to do weeding and planting. So it's just an excellent committee, very active. And I'll also say that Mike Young, who is our staff member, both Mike and Brandy are very supportive and help us out a lot, as does our select board liaison, Denise, and Jonathan you know, when he needs to.
That's fair. That's
So
fair.
that's
That's
good
fair.
enough,
That's
so.
fair.
That's how it should be.
That's exactly right.
At any rate, so this basically is a rolling document. The first 3 paragraphs all stay the same initially, but then we cover the next 5 years in separate paragraphs. Tonight, I think we really just want to be talking about what our committee goals will be for the 2024 to 25 year. One thing and I understand this is not a budget meeting tonight, but our 5-year plan is intimately tied into what our budget is. So there's some notes in here that I don't think we need to really get into unless someone wants to. That's more appropriate at a budget meeting. And we'll talk mainly about what the goals are per se. So for fiscal year 2024 to 25, there are basically 9 goals that we have, and I think that's going to be expanded to 10. I'll point out that the mowing and parks maintenance budget expired December 31st, and that's currently in the process of being reworked and renegotiated with Jonathan, and I'll be having some input in that. We'll have a discussion to see how it could be done most efficiently. So there'll be a 10th goal on the list. So starting with number 1, continue to budget annually for improving the playground equipment at Walker Park, ensuring that it's ADA compliant. Our first goal here may even be up in the air a little bit. It turns out that to replace that equipment may be much more than we're already budgeting for. And having said that, with the RES program going in that's apt to have a playground, Select Board may want to consider not funding the Walker Park playground equipment this year until we have a better idea what's happening at RES. And we'd also have to run that by the Parks Committee. This just sort of came up as a thought tonight. But that's a potential cost savings there if people would agree to it. Number 2, replace, repair, and paint the picnic tables town-wide. We consider this a maintenance expense. It's just something that needs to be done every year. Number 3 was the Parks Committee would like to see a sign installed down at Harbor Park that includes a map of the various Rockport parks along with a QR code that would help people find the different parks and the different sites. That would be a capital expense. That's incorrect here on our handout. It really is a capital expense. We have a brochure, a trifold brochure, that we distribute to the various inns and restaurants and places of business. And we thought we'd have to reprint those, but turns out we actually have quite a few left, so we can strike that off of there for savings of another $500. How am I doing?
You're doing
doing
great. Man, Doug. Keep going.
We want you to come every meeting.
Right.
You are the new favorite.
Number 5 is the bedding of the plants and replacement of dead shrubs and trees and just general work that the committee itself does. And we consider that a maintenance expense for $1,500. Memorial Park grass maintenance. I'm looking at Eric, but he's not up there. You'll remember that last year, the grass in Memorial Park looked absolutely horrible, and we hired the turf doctor to come and work his magic. And by the end of the summer, it's beautiful. And we'd like to continue that for Memorial Park. And, you know, the rationale is it is Memorial Park. And it is dedicated to the men and women who have served our country over the years. And I think there's a certain expectation of the populace that a memorial park should look well-maintained. And for that reason, we like to put a little extra effort into the grass, Eric, so. Let's see. And that would be a maintenance expense, sort of ongoing. We'd also like to, number 7, we'd like to buy 2 more benches for Walker Park to expand the seating area, both for residents and the tourists and stuff. It's a very popular park, particularly with families, and it has a lovely view out over the water, and a good place to sit, so we'd like to get 2 more of our benches for that. Number 8 is installation of a pedestrian pathway at the parking area in Marine Park, and the cost on that will be 0. Basically, to try to describe this to you, if you're standing in Harbor Park at the end of the wharf looking out at the water, over on the right-hand side is the left-hand side is the large grassy area. And on the right-hand side, near the Harbor Master building, there's a grassy area with the puffin chairs. But the parking areas in between those two pull right up to the bulkhead. And it turns out that those parking areas are long enough that we could take 4 feet of space from the bulkhead back to the front of the cars and rope that off with some bollards and some old used hawser to make it possible that people could walk from one grassy area to the other rather than cutting through the parking area. And the Public Works Department already has bollards that we can use that were cut off from the various pilings when they were replaced, and I'll dig up some used hawsers somewhere to strand between them, and it'll just give us a nice little walkway there for the pedestrians. Let's see, number 9 is ongoing evaluation of the kayak storage policy. As John alluded to earlier, the Parks Committee and the Harbor Committee had spent some time going over kayak storage. We came up with a policy and it got implemented this year, November 15th. And there were a few bumps along the way, people that wanted to leave their kayaks there for the winter season, et cetera. So I'm a big fan of rapid change management technique where you make a change, you see what works, what doesn't work, you revisit it, change what you need to, revisit it, what works, what doesn't work. So we're going to take that policy back to the Parks Committee and talk about some of these issues and see how we can improve it for next season. And finally is the mowing contract that we spoke about earlier. So
Great.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Michael, anybody have questions for Doug?
I think in general, the kayak policy one, I do think, well, I'm happy to hear that it's going to be revisited. Because I was uncertain if we put our foot forward at the wrong time, with instituting it so quickly. And I don't know if people that own the kayaks there got sufficient notice. So I'm happy that you guys are looking to pull
Well,
it
you
back.
voted
And
for
we,
it.
yeah, we did. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we put our foot too far forward.
Yeah,
quickly,
I think we tried something. Abby had indicated to us that 75% of those kayaks were not touched during the season. So we had this sort of huge storage of people's personal property on town property, and 75% of them weren't using it for the purpose that this was all designed for. So I think it's a great reset. Apologies to the folks who got sort of caught in the middle, and we've heard from some of you, and I think it's a great solution to have parks. We've learned some things from doing this. We're going to learn more as we evaluate the space where this has been, and maybe we don't need as many kayak racks. Maybe there's a better location for the kayak racks. And I see Abby's here, and would you like to come on up and give us some thoughts on
And
that?
while she's coming up, I just want to make sure that I'm clear, like, I'm fully in support of making the changes, fully in support. I just didn't know if we implemented it as smoothly.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, I've learned quite a few things about how we sort of manage the kayaks as far as the moorings go. And now we can treat them more like a mooring, so they're all in our online mooring system. Because the way that
Oh,
it used
that's
to
a
work
great point,
was that
yeah.
it was all taken with the harbor clerk. So when Wyatt was the harbor clerk, he would issue all the kayaks and keep the applications and things like that. And then right before he left, he put them all into online mooring. Well, but people didn't think that they needed to put an email address when they were applying for kayaks, and so, why would we need an email? Well, in our online mooring system, that's how we communicate. So I went through the initial email I sent out, just to give you, some background. So the initial email I sent out with the blurb from the Parks Committee saying, this is what needs to happen, November 15th. I sent it out October 20th. And then some kayaks moved. I heard a little bit, but I didn't hear that much. So I sort of went back in and I started noticing that the number of kayak racks we had out there did not match the number of contacts we had in my system.
In your
the
system.
system. So I said, ooh. So I went up to the town office. I found those. I called all the people directly and tried to get as many as I could in the system. So again, it just kind of all of these things sort of flushed out. And then I sent another email, made some phone calls. And now everybody's in the system, so we can, but some people were like, oh, do I still have a kayak down there? So that was really sort of, that was, I
Right,
think,
they
the
didn't even
impetus
remember that they
of
had
the
left a-
policy in the first place. And I do think that there's some, we'll deal with some issues. I'll go to the Parks Committee, because we do have folks that like to use their kayaks all year.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the town will have a big yard sale of kayaks in the spring.
No, this is not, that's said in jest.
And they are safely at Public Works, secure, and
Yeah, and
So,
I think as John's report indicated, if somebody wants their kayak over the winter, we can
We can-
make arrangements to
we
get it
can
back
make
to you
arrangements
if
to
you'd
get
like
it. We
that.
can bring it back down to the harbor at any point.
Yeah.
So
Talk to
they're not,
Abby.
they're not handcuffed to anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll learn as we go, but
Yeah.
I think it's, I think the harbor's going to be like that, right? There are changes that, as you sort of look at how the town has used the harbor over the years, we don't know whether we're going to make changes, but there are questions and things that we want to evaluate down there to make sure it's best serving our residents, our taxpayers, our visitors, our,
Especially as that volume increases to this
exactly.
point.
So and change is not always everybody's favorite thing. So bear with us. We'll try to listen and learn and move along. But all in all, our goal and intention is to create a better public space for our town. So know that is the intent. We're happy to hear from you and answer questions. And
That's what parks are all about.
that's right. That's right. Thank you, Doug, so much for your presentation. Thank you, Abby. Any other,
Can I ask
John,
a
you have
question?
something? Yeah.
So one thing that a lot of the committees and boards that come forward, sometimes it's more policy-based, right? And that they're policies that they want to pursue. And I know it's been a lot of policy work that the Parks Committee, and this is just one of them, but I wondered, are there other policies, other ideas? I mean, Eric had mentioned the issue of grass cover and clover and alternative uses, but I just wonder, Doug, perhaps, are there other policies or ideas of policies that Parks has considered or wants to consider, or that are somewhat on the horizon? Because this is, this work plan is sort of the time to talk about those things, or at least get the ball rolling. And maybe that's
Well-
premature. I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, thinking about it, and Denise, you're our liaison, so you're frequently at the meetings. It hasn't been a big topic of discussion. It really has more to do with, like I say, kind of maintenance
Yeah.
issues. Here are parks, how do we take care of them?
yeah.
Yeah, and because we're trying to fill the gap between the sort of heavy lifting that Public Works can do. We're more the gardeners, the landscaper, trying to put a visual eye to how we can keep the parks looking as nice as possible.
Yeah.
Are there some you might have in mind?
Oh no. Oh, no.
You're
No,
not
but
gonna go for that.
It's a, the work, talking about, some of those issues, the harbor or different parks, there's these uses that sort of change and grow, and the work that's gone into making these parks, raising their visibility, raising how they look, that can inevitably create, just like the harbor has, create an attraction and a draw that then eventually, well, you need to, if you want to reserve the park, or those sort of things start to crop up. And I don't know that we're necessarily there right now, but I mention it if for no other reason than to say, if there are, as the committee's work through the year, grows and the like, perhaps there's something that's on next year's work plan, that isn't, necessarily the budget as much as it's, we really want to look into this, or we want to look into this topic, or, whether it's the type of shrubs, whether it's local plants, native plants, whether it's, there's different, I think there's just a whole bunch of different areas that Parks and Beautification can cover. So, not that I want to make more work for the committee, because you guys have more work than anybody I know, but in terms of committees, but
Well, and I guess when I
it's
think
a
of
lot.
policy, like with the various parks, and I think this brochure is the attempt to sort of describe what each of the parks
Yeah.
are there for, their purpose. We've definitely talked about doing Mary Leah Park, some things
Yeah.
that could make that more accessible and useful to the community.
Right, yeah.
Walker Park, as Doug indicated, with the, questioning the playground reserve. But what does Walker Park look like over the years, depending on what happens at the RES side?
Right.
How do we, sort of balance the parks that we have
Yeah.
with what our taxpayers are paying, with what our community's experiencing and what they want?
Right, that's true.
It sort of reminds me, apropos of this, I think somewhere we do have a parks use policy that, addresses if you wanted to have a wedding in
Yeah.
Mary Leah Park. I probably ought to get my hands on that. I'm kind of
I
embarrassed
saw
to
some
say.
reference to that, which I was curious
Yeah.
about, just not something called that, but this idea of who you should call if you want to reserve a park.
Yeah, yeah.
Independent of your wedding in Harbor Park, and I was like, I didn't know
Yeah.
you can do that.
I'll have to track that down, because that might be a fertile thing
Yeah.
to review, and
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to raise it as, policy, this is one of these areas where you're trying to get, a lot of, some have said I don't like committees, but it's not true. Some, Doug,
Yes, it
have
is.
said I don't like committees, and no, but policy work is really helpful for the board, and the more that these committees, whatever they may be, whether it's conservation or parks or harbor or whomever, the more those issues, and we didn't get all the issues figured out with the kayak, but there are probably 1,000 more that the committee was able to work through in its work before it even got here.
Yep.
So if we do it the right way, rather than, just having me sit here and type a policy together, but having the work of those who are in the ground working on these issues, the board can get a better product in the end. And so that's why I'm sort of, maybe I'm using you as a guinea pig on this, Doug, but I want to be able to say that's the value of this, is the meeting the middle in terms of maintenance, but also meeting the middle in terms of policy, and the people who sometimes know the issues best, bringing those ideas forward. So I appreciate the work that you guys did this
Yeah.
year, because that helped a great
yeah.
deal, I think.
And I agree with you completely. I don't want to write policies just to be writing policies.
No.
But I'm also a firm believer that if a question comes up, our policy is to look at the policy. And our policy is, if we don't have a policy, then our policy is to write a policy.
Yeah, there you go.
So, clearly our antenna need to be up,
Yeah.
for issues that might be percolating out there.
right.
And this is particularly true for Harbor Park, as you know, because you know, we're sort of looking at a master plan for that park, and it's a complicated park
It
with
is.
the harbor committee and the parks committee and all the activities, so
Yeah.
you need to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
You don't?
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks to all the other Parks Committee members who work hard for this town,
Wherever they may be.
wherever they may be on this cold, snowy night.
Hopefully not outside in a park somewhere. Oh, boy,
Yeah,
working.
it's good to be thinking of the parks year-round, but,
That's right.
okay, do we have a motion to approve the park work plan?
I could make a motion.
Would you?
I move that the board approve the work plan for the Rockport Parks and Beautification Committee as amended.
I think it would be amended if we're taking out the Walker Park
The
West for
12th.
the reserve and the $500 for the trifold.
And adding number 10. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a dollar? I mean, I know we're not doing budget, yeah. Okay. Okay, as amended. Is there a second?
Sure. Second.
Great. So much enthusiasm. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Wonderful.
Well, I still sort of have the floor. What time is the
6 o'clock.
EMS?
6 o'clock here in the library,
Thank you.
for everybody listening as well, next Tuesday night. Okay, next is Act on 150 Park Street property.
Thanks, Abby.
And that has the revised,
And that has the revised motion, or
Yeah.
suggested motion.
The language is the same, but the motion is different, so.
Want to do a brief introduction?
Where is that?
Sure. Yeah, that would have been, the motion, Eric, would have been in, I just sent an email out to
Oh,
you and
that
Kim.
one.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but the comments would have been the same, so, if you just want to look
Yeah,
at that
got it,
sheet,
yep.
that should have just about everything, other than the letter that Scott had sent. So basically, where we are, it's your October meeting. You had asked for some forward progress, of course.
2
Ms.
weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks.
And Ms. Hart was at the meeting, and her engineer, Mike Sabatini, concurred. They agreed to work with our code enforcement officer. They met at the property within a day or two. Actually, it was 2 days after. It was Thursday. It's Wednesday. And reviewed the building. Both parties agreed that the building was in poor condition and needed to come down. There was no salvaging the building. After that point, Ms. Hart worked and submitted an application to demolish the building. And part of, and Ryan can certainly chime in if there's anything I miss here, but when you work in the shoreline zone as an earthwork contractor, you have to have certification from Maine DEP to do so. And over the course of the next few weeks, though a permit application was filed, Ms. Hart was not able to secure a contractor who had that certification. Scott Bickford, our code officer, spoke with Maine DEP. They were willing to allow him to oversee the work so that she could work with whomever she wished to demolish the building, but he would be the one who was certified that would allow such work to occur. And at that point, still no forward progress was made on this. So Scott drafted a letter on December 14th. I've shared a copy of that letter that effectively says we are no further ahead and the board should take action. So, so basically what we have before you is a suggested motion. This came from the town attorney that would initiate the dangerous buildings process under state law. You would set a hearing for that on a date determined, which could be your next board meeting, and then allow myself or my designee Just so happens you're here. Thanks for being there for me. To send out the notices required by the statute. Obviously, this isn't a place that anybody here wants to be,
Right.
but
But we're now
but here we
3
are.
months down the road. I mean, I
Exactly.
think we gave all due credit, I mean, even by our October meeting, if you really read the record and listened to Scott, this town has been spending over a year in untold time and resources on the part of our employees working with this issue. And it's disappointing that the property owner hasn't been able to work with us on this, so I'm not sure we have much of an option. Kim, it looks like you'd like to say something. Uh-oh, you might be on mute? I don't know.
Are you muted?
I don't see them.
She is.
Okay. No, I don't see the little crossed out microphone. Dang it.
She had to go to her laptop instead of her iPad. So
And Eric was coming through, so it's not system.
God, I hate that stuff.
Well, while her
Maybe,
audio is
Michael, you
getting
want to say
fixed,
something?
I just want to, I read through all the material to get up to speed, and I just want to make sure, in summary, that I'm understanding where we're at. So, I know she had gone and contacted a number of contractors to give estimates to tear the place down, and the idea of having a certified one is imperative because of state law. Is that the only thing that truly has held it up? I mean, there's nothing we needed to do to allow her, if I'm understanding right.
no.
It's basically just, all that needs to be done is make sure you get a certified
She's got the
person
permit to
to
demolish, right?
demolish.
She doesn't have the permit
Oh,
because we
she has to
couldn't.
have the-
You can't issue the
Right.
permit. She
Without-
applied for the permit.
Right. So if
And once those elements are complete in the application, then a permit could be issued, right?
When she has a
Basi-
contractor.
It basically.
right, there's someone has to be some acceptance on her part that she's going to allow Scott to be the person who
Or,
is, or she finds someone who's certified.
right, so,
Under either of those
so that's the
circumstances.
only thing that really needs to be done, right?
That's right. That's
Just
right.
get a certified contractor.
Right.
Because everybody has agreed that, yeah, it's gonna be demolished, and so she's in agreement, we're in agreement, yeah, we're fine.
And basically, 2 days after our last meeting in October, it was clear what needed to happen.
Yeah, so I am a little bit dismayed.
Yeah.
Because I was very hopeful after the meeting, we did talk about, making it all work. I am dismayed that we're at this point, and that still hasn't been done,
Yeah.
so.
I wonder if Kim is there a way she could call me on my cell phone and I could put it up to a microphone?
yeah.
So we could,
Will that work, Jeff?
Yeah, it'll work if,
Okay.
yeah.
I have devices.
Yeah,
One
wanna
more
call me?
device.
Call me, Kim. I'll pick up, I promise. If you want, I could send you my phone number.
I think,
Eric, I assume you cannot hear Kim either. Could someone ask Eric that question?
Eric, can you hear when Kim talks?
No.
Okay.
So
so
Kim,
it's-
oh, I
so
don't
we're
wanna
all
say my-
consistent, that's good.
We're all consistent.
Yeah.
Yes. This could be like Love Actually, where you just write out what you're going to say, Kim, and you hold it up in front of the camera.
It's not muted in Teams, is
Is
it?
that ringing, Kim?
No, because we hear you.
Okay. Yes, I'm putting you over by the mic now.
Oh, no.
No.
So Kim, make sure your phone is
Oh,
not
no,
near
Kim
your
needs to mute
microphone.
herself on the TV.
View her mic.
Can you officially mute yourself on the Teams call?
I just did.
Okay.
That's better. That's so weird. So what is the process of the hearing and what's involved?
Or turn your computer speaker down.
Actually, you know what, Denise, if you mute your phone so we're not hearing your phone feedback, it will probably
that
solve
work
the
too?
problem.
There we
Okay,
go.
let's try it.
Great idea.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Oh my goodness.
And we can go to the moon.
I think if she turns on her speaker, that's probably the best.
Turn down your speakers on your computer.
Turn down your.
Ah, that's better already.
Then I can't hear you guys.
Oh, through the phone you can hear, can't you?
No, I muted her.
Oh, unmute.
Can you hear me at all?
Okay, yeah, we hear you.
We hear you.
Can you hear us
A little bit.
through her speakerphone? Okay.
So for the hearing, what is the process? What is involved?
Okay. Or do you have, ask her if she has any other questions, and then,
Are there any other
Then she can turn
questions?
her-
We'll make sure we get them all. And then
Not
you can
yet.
turn your speakers back up.
okay. All right. So she probably needs to turn her speaker back up.
Okay, so
Okay, you can just,
You want me to go?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so Kim, can you hear us now? Okay, so the hearing process, so after this motion, you would select a date and assigning John as the designee or his designee to take care of this next process. So what would entail with that is the owner or owners will have to check the deed to the property. They all have to be notified. If there's any current lien holders, they'll have to be notified of this particular process and when the date is going to be. And then at that hearing is when the timetable will be set on when the demolition needs to be accomplished by. And then if it hasn't been accomplished by that date, then the town would take care of said process. Then those fees, all fees associated would then be similar to a lien. They'd be associated with that property going forward.
So the town wouldn't be out any money in proceeding along this path because it would be part of the lien on the property and,
We shouldn't be, as long as the whole process with lien works correctly, then yeah, we should get all of our money back.
but all that can be avoided
All that can
if
be
the
avoided.
property owner just gets a certified contractor.
Correct.
gets a contractor, really.
She's identified 4 contractors, and I think it's in that email chain of people
Yeah,
that I've sent
yeah,
you. I
yeah.
think a few of them were licensed, but at the end of the day, Scott is also authorized to oversee it, so she's choosing not to utilize that option.
Right.
It's unfortunate.
And FYI, I'm back on the iPad.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Oh, we can hear
We can
you.
hear you.
Gosh, that's so easy. Like,
No, it's not.
no, not then, but right now we can hear you. That's great.
Yay, Apple, Kim.
Oh, gosh.
Oh. Ooh, burn.
I won't share what. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
I know
good.
Kim's thought about Apple.
So any more questions in response to the information Orion presented to us? And I would suggest, having talked it over with John, that we look at consider February 12th, our next select board meeting, as the date for that hearing.
Have the
Because
hearing, but be done
there is-
then.
Yeah, that's enough time to do all the notice that's required. It's keeping the process moving, but making sure there's
Should be-
adequate time to
should be
do it
plenty
right.
of time. So, yeah, the notice, it just also has to be recorded that Registry of Deeds, and I think the sheriff's office has to do it, so I think that still should be plenty of time to
Okay,
take care of that in a month, so.
okay. Uh-oh. Talk to me.
Kim's
Oh,
muted.
but this
So
time you are
February
muted.
12th,
Go ahead.
we're looking at February 12th.
Yes. So, do we have a motion? And it would be along the lines of what the town lawyer provided to us. Do you want to read that, Mike?
I make a motion to move forward the dangerous buildings process under 17 MRS subsection 2851 for the structure located at 150 Park Street. Set a hearing for that purpose on February 12th, 2024, and authorize the town manager or their designee to send out appropriate notices to all parties involved.
Great.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All right,
Do we need to specify time?
on the February 12th?
Yeah.
It'll be at our meeting, right?
It'll be at our meeting, so presumably at the meeting that starts at 6 PM.
Okay,
But I don't know if the motion, I don't think the motion needs to contain that.
okay.
Because there will be notices provided. Everybody will have notice of when that time, when that meeting will be. Great. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay.
4. Okay.
4-0 with Jim Annis being gone. And, yeah, it is unfortunate what Michael was saying, but I think this is, we need to protect our residents and avail ourselves of our town ordinances that are designed to do that, so. Okay, next, act on safety mission statement.
So this is sort of a precursor to our annual safety training that occurs every year, this time of year. Every town employee, save those who have, so our police departments and our fire departments have their own separate training, which are very specific to their purposes. But every year at this time, we act, the board acts on this mission statement. And this is sort of a rubber stamping of that mission statement. There's no change in this mission statement to last year's mission statement, but it just reaffirms the board stands behind a safe place to work for their employees.
Great. Is there a motion?
Oh, gotta find the mission statement. I move the board approve the safety mission statement as presented.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next is act on EOP proclamation and powers. And I guess EOP is Emergency Operations Plan, proclamation and powers.
In a similar fashion, again, this is part of that annual safety training, that a review of our emergency operations plan, and this goes concurrent with that, and that's the select board authorizing that EOP and how we operate under an emergency, which I think Kim is about to go to training on that in the next few days, if I remember correctly, right?
A little later in the month.
Later in the month, okay, yep. So this is, again, the same document we've, the board's approved in previous years.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll give a motion. I move the board approve the emergency operations plan proclamation and powers as presented.
About a second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Next is act on revised fire department services restitution policy.
You know, when you come up with a policy, there's always room for change.
Yep.
So like any good policy, you change it as soon as you approve it. No, there were a number of different items that, from the conversation in December, that required an adjustment, extraction, a few other areas that Chief Peasley wanted to see addressed in that billing section. So just as we had discussed the idea that it needed to come back, here we are. Did not expect there would be this many changes, but that happens. But in any event, so that's really what's proposed here. Nothing in terms of how it operates, really just those changes in compensation or from what's proposed.
And I think it's in the town's interest, right? These are things that if we actually have to use them and spend money on them.
It was, yeah, so those were the basic changes made. It was just the compensation
Yeah.
fees and adding a couple in there that we hadn't had before, but other towns do have.
Precisely.
And these are fairly in line with what is the going rate, basically, what other towns do.
Yeah, and I would also say, talking with Chief about this, he said, we may get it a year from now and say, oh boy, we should have done X, Y, and Z, and then we're back here and we make the changes as needed,
Yeah.
you know?
That's
It's
just
it's
it.
really,
Yep.
Learn
that's
as
what
we
policies
go.
are for, so.
Yeah, I did have a note, just wondering, and I don't want to suggest we have to change it now, but looking at, the hourly reimbursement for the chief and the firefighters, and wondering if that, if you take salary and benefits, if you're allowed to do that, we probably spend more on them than what is reflected in these hourly rates. I don't know if we're
Well,
allowed to.
it's a good question. It's with firefighters, particularly with full-time, when you talk
Right,
about
when
full-time
our volunteer
employees.
staff is sort of not
Yeah,
relevant. So it'd be more-
$30 an hour would be enough probably for our current staff, but chief officers, I know you've got some amendments, Michael.
Michael's-
He's got a note card.
I have basically editorial typo and.
Beautiful.
And
Okay,
very minute things, but my short list goes. Like on page 4, and in sections 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4, it says that Rockport residents, as in the word house,
yes,
will not be charged these fees. So I'm just saying, be sure to change it to
Residents.
residents, meaning the people. Okay. In section 4, the second paragraph has a phrase that says, "Select board are," to do something, oh, thank you, you got it printed there, yeah.
down here.
Oh, there we go, yeah. Yeah, it says, "The select board are authorized." That should be is authorized.
Mine says is.
There's several places. It's
Yeah,
the
there are a lot of
last
places that do
sentence.
say it, but
section
in
four.
section 4,
What section is it?
Section 4, last sentence.
under restitution billing,
Oh, yeah, I got you.
yeah. So that's a minor thing. And then on the rates, it says chief officers with an apostrophe S. I think it's just supposed to be officers without the apostrophe. Because it's not his or hers,
Right, no apostrophe.
those officers.
I wonder, isn't there just
like-
one chief? But maybe not.
There's one chief, but there's many officers. They're chief officers, so you're
Okay.
deputy chief, assistant chief, so forth.
So that's just a
So
plural.
just get away with the apostrophe.
And you're gonna be so kind to hand me that note card so I can
I
go through it.
will.
What a guy.
Yeah, yeah. Those are the only things I saw to change.
Okay,
But I have a question,
yes.
which doesn't necessarily encompass this, but it will at some point probably. What happens when an EV catches on fire and it requires all that special equipment to put out the stupid lithium battery?
Can you take your
What?
hand away from your mouth and speak up?
No, can't do that.
I couldn't hear very
I said,
well.
what happens when we have an EV fire and we have to have all that equipment to put out the lithium battery? Are we gonna consider that as something? Do we have the equipment even to handle that? I mean, there's a lot of thought that needs to go into that, but at some point, we're gonna need to add something to that effect.
Can
Yeah.
I want to see if I heard correctly. You're talking about EV lithium batteries in electric vehicles? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay, and the fires those create, do we have the equipment to take care of
Yeah.
those? Okay,
because normal firefighting does not put those out.
okay, okay.
So, I mean, I'm not saying it has to be in here now, but I don't know if we even have the equipment necessary for that. So that's something we should talk about. Plus, at some point, whatever the cost is for that,
Yeah.
I mean, we should have that added on here as well. I mean, because especially the equipment, $20 an hour isn't going to cut it when it comes to a lithium battery fire.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly how they would handle a Tesla, going kablooey on Route 1790 intersection. I think that's a good question for Chief.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah.
it's something
Yeah,
we
it's
need to
several
consider
pronged, because
because
it's
they are
also-
occurring with a lot more frequency than I think people realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is a section in here that talks about vehicle fires and that as well as fluid and hazardous substance mitigation. So pick one. I don't know. I don't know which one is.
Yeah,
I don't know which one would
just-
qualify, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
Either way,
I
Eric,
just
it's
don't
like
know what the cost is of that equipment to put it
Right.
out, and if,
Right.
say we get a grant to buy the equipment, or if we have it, I don't even know,
Yeah.
and it costs $4,000 to replace it, then
Yep.
we need to be billing $4,000, but I don't have any idea how much it costs. I just know it's not cheap.
Definitely not. Yeah, no, you're right.
Well, I think we could go ahead and approve this policy tonight with the amendments that we've
Oh, yeah.
already talked about, but we can find out on the question of EV firefighting equipment and
Yeah.
keep
Just-
that in mind.
I just want to put it out there as, make sure somebody's thinking about it before it happens.
Yep.
Very good.
And it's a good budget time conversation question too, Eric. Like, are we prepared for that? Because obviously there's more and more down the road every day, so.
Yeah.
That's a good
I mean, I
point.
have read sometimes where fire departments sort of respond and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not touching that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pushed them into lakes and just let them burn for 4 days straight
Oh,
because they don't go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't do that.
Okay.
We'll use the harbor. No,
I'll just call Elon.
no. Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I can make. a
I move the
motion.
board approve the fire department services restitution policy as presented.
Will you go with as amended with Michael's amendments?
Oh, as amended.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
You're respectful.
In a second?
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Great. Okay. Now, the new item we added to the agenda for action items is entitled Act on Weidman Fund.
You go for it. Yeah,
I'm happy to,
yeah.
I think as John's outline here says, John and I met with Town Attorney Phil Saucier and his, the expert at Bernstein Sure, Colby Wallace on wills and estates, talked to them about the Weidman Fund, the information we developed looking through our files on that fund, the original genesis through the will, and provided them with all the data, talked to them about our analysis that our select board has struggled over the years with how to take advantage and use this fund for the benefit of residents. It, would get used periodically, but usually because somebody in the town office would know about it and they would tell their friends who would then say, oh, that could help me. And so, some money was given out over time, but it never felt like it was really consistently implemented and used throughout the town. And when you think about it, because it requires, that somebody be needy, and it was for hospital costs, and there were a few changes made over time. But this gift, the will was dated 1963, which predated Medicaid and Medicare. So the ability to pay for medical costs, the world has dramatically changed since then. So in talking with the Bernstein Sure lawyers, and Colby in particular, it turns out the state of Maine adopted a statute that recognized this kind of situation where you have these very old bequests that really no longer fit their original purposes. And the Maine statute says for anything that's over 50 years old, which this is because it was created in 1970, so we're now 53 years past that date, there's just a lot more latitude under state law to change how that money can be used. And their advice to us was that we could move forward, that they didn't see any problem at all with this process, with us being able to change the use they advised. We had thought maybe we would just narrowly keep it to the use for the ambulance, but they said there's no reason to limit yourself that way. It can be used for other purposes related to the town, and I think as this proposed motion suggests, public safety items for the town. So very optimistic. Any attorney's fees that are spent in this process can be paid for out of the fund itself, so that, again, we're not out of pocket pursuing this. And in my view, I think the sooner the better that we get this moving forward, have this money available to us as we proceed with what we'll be talking about next Monday in terms of the EMS service.
'Cause that's predominantly where we're thinking, right? Is to try to utilize the funds towards the purchase of this new.
Potentially the ambulance or other costs related to
yeah.
the new EMS program that we're going to be discussing.
And that would help offset most of that cost of the ambulance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. We'll have to talk about what limits we still might have with respect to that money. It's I think it's roughly around $500,000. The original principal was $50,000. So is there some argument that we can't use it all in one purchase?
yeah.
Or, there'll be more details, I think, once we work through this process with the lawyers.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think,
should,
and the latitude in which they think that the town can pursue is pretty substantial, but obviously, and knowing and wanting to remain true to the spirit of the request, right, is still, there's sort of that balance of, perhaps there's more flexibility because of that 50-year gap, but also, us knowing that there are people who are still around who knew the Wyden family, and there's relatives who are still around, and there are those families who benefited from use of that Wyden trust decades ago, but also understanding now that the playing field has changed a bit for us, and that what's the best way in which town government can support those in need in an emergency medical circumstance. And this seems to be a good fit for that. And there's a number of needs, and how to determine them are probably more than we could even begin to count today. And even next week when we have our workshop, I think it's sort of it's one piece of the puzzle, so.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move the board authorize the town manager to seek a legal remedy to the town's use of the Marion Weidman Fund to include matters of a public safety concern.
Okay, second?
Seconded.
Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. All right, next is, we're done with action items. We're moving on to discussion item about the comprehensive plan. And I think in our December packet, we had the governance and finance sections discussions that were provided to us. And I think Orion was looking for feedback or comments on that.
I was, yes. Now,
Is there anything at this point?
Megan had gotten back to me with some additional edits to it. So it's a little bit different than what you got, but for the most part, it's the same thing. It's just mainly some data stuff. So I don't know if you wanted the data in answer to the last two questions, but I can forward that off to you momentarily. But outside of that, which is in the borrowing capacity section, outside of that, do y'all have any comments thus far?
I have to be honest, I'm not up to speed.
I sort of looked at it. And we talked about it in at December's meeting that, the town of Rockport government section, because we're governed by the charter, I was worried that we're talking a little bit about some of the details, and I didn't want to try to go back and make sure we were consistent 100% with the charter. So I was sort of just drafting more of an introductory paragraph, that says something along the lines that we're charter-based, town manager, select board form of government. Charter was adopted, amended these days. And then I added, overall, the select board sets policy for the town, and the town manager implements that policy and manages the department heads and town employees, and just sort of leave it at that very
It's a good
high level.
high level.
And I can get you that language to sort of replace.
Everything in the government section there.
That would be, since you indicated that that isn't even really a requirement, but it's not bad to give a summary of how we're organized.
Yeah, no, that would be good.
Okay. And then my only, looking through the fiscal capacities, the various
So Denise?
sections. Yes. Go ahead, Kim, sorry.
Would what you just said, would that replace those first couple of paragraphs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, would probably replace
First page.
the first page, and I don't know what all this implementation strategy, is that?
I would recommend getting rid of that entire table.
would too, yeah.
If you're just gonna do
Yeah, just a quick summary of what our form of government is and reference the charter as the place to really, if you want to understand all the details of how we're organized and governed, It's all in the charter.
So the
That'd be
first
good.
couple of
Yeah.
pages then.
Yeah, the first
or
2
beyond.
pages, I think, and then would be the third page would be the next section, I think, right? What do you guys think of that? Doing it
Yeah,
that way?
that was what I was commenting last time. The same issues is we've already done this, reference the charter and make it short and sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm happy to send it around, so make sure you guys are okay with the sort of replacement paragraph.
It sounds very logical to me.
Yeah, then you're not constantly updating it just for that.
Right,
Change.
right. Yeah, that's a good point, too, that even if we got it right this time, as the charter might change, what does that mean for our comprehensive plan? The finance stuff, I guess I don't know how much point in time information, I mean, I reacted to it because it's like, well, who cares what was going on in 2019, or, you know, some of the stuff that's in here, and it's like, well, that's like one moment in time. What does that have to do with a comprehensive plan that's looking out going forward?
Yeah.
Is there something specific that you're referencing there, or the mill rates, or?
There's a couple of places where we do that. I mean, I didn't want to like take up our select board meeting time with edits.
No, that's fine. Some of it requires, the state requires you to have a particular date range. So it's, the mill rate was 10 years, and I think we included a couple extra, or one extra.
So we're required to show what our mill rate
Yeah,
was
we're
for a
required to show,
10-year.
and John might be able to better answer that, but I think if you see a lot of fluctuation with the mill rate, it might indicate something, but if you see a steady growth or a steady decline, or if it's steady throughout, you might be able to discern a different opinion about it.
Yeah, and, you know, like the conversation we had last time, they're trying to get 400 and something towns to operate with best practices. Well, we've got, you know, some places don't exactly have the eyes on that we do.
Yes.
So it's somewhat requirements. Some of these requirements are somewhat nice so that we can say, yes, we check the box from the state's perspective. Realistically, it probably has very little value to the 5 of you and myself and Orion and the community at large. It's more of, you know, as we talked about before, is there anything we want to change? Is there anything, are we happy with who we are? Are we happy with,
Right,
you know?
right.
That's really what it is. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, we're so far ahead of the curve in terms of our financial reporting, and we were talking about the, you know, the internal control policy the other day. Like, that's, if you were to give that to 95% of the towns in the state, they would be like, their eyes would be glazed over. It's just, this is where we are.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway.
So we were saying the state requires certain sections of the financial part there. I'm
Yeah, so
guessing to
each
show
of
an
these
historical-
sections, each of these sections is a requirement.
Okay.
The data tables, the taxable valuation, I think it was just the past 5 years, but there was limited data on what the state had, so I just did to 2015, just to kind of show that. But yeah, for the most part, if they required a date range of data, then that's why that date range of data was there.
And I can see if somebody's looking at the comprehensive plan, and it'll help give them a little road, little historical points like this. Oh, okay, that town looks like it's well-managed because they're not going crazy with the mill rates every year or whatever.
And I don't want to over-edit it at all, because I could.
Right. Yeah.
Because I have in mind, where is the document that people can go look at and see what our plan for the future is? And not get mired in minutia and 200 pages that just
Yeah.
says, yeah, I'm never opening that thing because that is scary looking.
Right.
Because it's important, I mean, the
Right.
process is important, but you know, there's this great quote that, you know, Oliver Wendell Holmes, you know, if I don't give a fig for simplicity this side of complexity, I would give my soul for simplicity, the other side of complexity. And that's, I think, what what I'd love us to get to is, yes, we get all mired in this. And I appreciate you've got obligations to the state, there are
I'm with you.
boxes that have to be checked.
Yep.
So I don't want to make this sound easy or simple to do. So I don't want to, but those are the eyes I'm reading it with. As I read it and I say, do we really have to do all this? How helpful is it to talk about, just some of the points in time data that are already out of date?
Sure.
And I'm not saying it's not okay to throw them in, because maybe it does give people a better,
It's funny, I don't think I've ever read anybody else's comprehensive plan, but I do find it interesting sometimes, like, oh, how are their budgets gone, or how has this gone over history? So I can see it give a little bit of,
give some background. so
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can see
background.
that the valuations have gone up over the years, or
Yeah.
whatever this,
yeah.
and down. It's sort of the valuation to show that when people are thinking, oh, it always goes up, 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 well, that isn't quite how it
Wouldn't
works.
that be nice?
Yeah.
The trends and all that,
Right.
yeah.
So, well, let me just ask this, though, and I don't want to, again, I know there are lots of good things we can do at our meetings, and I'm not
this
sure
is-
spending a lot of detailed time on this is that, but, so tax relief programs.
Yep.
So, and I don't have any page numbers here, so I can't really tell you where it is, but
That is the 1, 2,
page numbers would be good, too.
3, page 3 of the fiscal portion, so 5.
Okay.
Fifth page down.
So we have sort of this laundry list of various,
Mm-hmm.
and was it Megan?
Well, yes, I knew it didn't exist, but it was on the state's site as a program, so, like,
But all these others are there and do need to be listed.
yeah, they just need to be listed, that's
Okay.
it.
That's what the state wants in every town's comprehensive plan, is the state's own programs. Got it. Okay. And then I guess you could say that helps our taxpayers be informed of what kind of relief might be available to them.
Other
Yes.
resources.
Yep. And you had a note, Orion, under tax exempt property, that you weren't sure we had to keep that in.
Yeah, we don't need to keep it in. Megan thinks it would be beneficial, and it does kind of give an
And what is it-
understanding
What does
of,
exempt amount mean? Is that just whatever the current valuation would have been?
Yeah.
So
so
that
right
would-
now, we have about $82 million. That's total value that is not being,
So as of
Tax.
2023, and then that number, again, is one of those points in time that'll, over time,
Mhm.
they'll keep, so Carrie assesses all of these nonprofit properties.
oh, yeah.
And do we get any credit from the state for having all this nonprofit
Not
property?
to my knowledge, no.
But they want it in, good.
Well, like I said, this one isn't, this is not a requirement. This was a part of the last comp plan, and I kind of like it because it does show that we've got a lot of nonprofits here, and, it's something to pay attention to.
And this is a comprehensive list, this is all we've got.
Yeah, because it shows when people are looking at this and going, why is my property tax bill so high? Well, the town also has so much property that they can't tax to help share the
Yeah,
burden.
yeah.
And some of those properties, I'm sure, give something in lieu of.
We do get the in lieu of,
From some of
but
them.
when you see-
But that's out of their kindness of their hearts, right?
Right, and we appreciate that, we appreciate
Yeah.
that. So then the tree growth, farm, and open space,
Yeah, so the data in that table, there is more updated data. Right now, just want everybody to be kind of comfortable with it, and then I'll update the data.
and what is the point of this section? Is that also to show that we've got land that's not paying taxes?
Well, so if you are part of a tree growth program,
You're not
that
paying-
land's gonna be kind of locked up in undevelopable for a while. Now, it doesn't mean you can't develop it, you just have to take it out of the tree growth. And if you take it out of the tree growth, there's gonna be a tax penalty. Sorry, Michael,
Nice.
you looking?
I
I'm
see
looking out at the flashing.
emergency
Oh,
lights
lights.
oh.
reflecting off.
And then same with the other ones. So they all get a reduction in the valuation and the taxes that they would pay. So they're kind of locked up. So that's how much land we have locked up.
So I think
and
it would be really
associated.
helpful, if the point of this is to let people know, wouldn't it be helpful to have sort of an introductory sentence that sort of lets, that's why we're including it, is that the town has various properties that do not pay, for various reasons, their full share of tax, and however you would want to phrase it. But like the tree, and, you know, you sort of get in there, and then I'm like, oh yeah, what we're trying to say is there are properties that have reduced tax rates. Is that the point, right?
Yep.
So that overall is
I mean,
reducing available revenue to the town.
So I guess if there's a better way of rewording those paragraphs
Well, like, do we
up
care,
above.
or do we have to include like total tree growth, softwood mixed?
Yeah, because those are different classifications, and some people might be interested in it, some people might not, but that's just
Okay.
how it's broken down. But ugh.
It's okay.
The
to
few
have
paragraphs
more.
ahead.
Yeah, as long as you don't lose what the point of it all
Right.
is.
Yeah. So if there's a different way that you'd like those few paragraphs in front of that chart to be
Yeah,
worded.
because I think the point
Have at it.
here is, I mean, we can have all the detail we want, but forgive it, you can lose sight of the forest for the trees.
Oh, goodness.
Ooh, I like it.
Well, I'm going to draft a little
Go for it.
introductory on that.
I think it was what, 30-something pages in the original comp plan, the one we're updating. So I mean, it's down to 15.
Well done,
So
okay.
If you want to take it down to 14, you actually no.
No,
now
I'm
it's,
not trying to.
now it's down to 13.
Actually, I just think putting it in because if you're just a raw
Yeah, in
reader, you're like,
context of-
who cares about tree growth? Why are we talking about this? And then it's like,
Well, sure.
and as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, I start to understand it has to do with, it
Yeah.
impacts our tax revenue, our tax bills, right? That's why is that why we care?
Well, I mean, it
Some
does
people just
impact it, but
interested in softwood.
it tells you, so if you're looking at a particular area, and if you strum to this page and you see, okay, I've got 575 acres of land that's designated in tree growth. Well, if I need 100 acres, I might want to look a little further as to where that is for development. That might tell them something. It might also tell them if this was larger, like an unseen number, like maybe I don't want to develop in that community because there might be a big opposition against it. So there's a few indicators that this would tell a developer. I'm talking about a developer. A home buyer, they might say, this is cool.
Yeah.
They preserve trees.
It gives a little indication
also-
of what the town contains.
With the tree growth, it's harvested wood. At some point in time, it's all going to get harvested. So if there's a large growth, then you might say, when is that going to come due? Am I ready to live in that area that has that much land that's going to be harvested next year?
Good point.
So there's a few different ways that it's interpreted.
So is this a high number or low number? 570?
It's an okay number. It's not, I mean, for Rockport, we got quite a bit of land, so it's an all right number.
Okay.
To be continued.
To be continued. So moving on to the debt section, when we were I'm on the page, but the section that's called exclusive debt. So we have a phrase there that we are, the statute allows for 7.5% of the municipal valuation. At this time, we were at 6.8% of this total allowable debt. So we were at 6.8% of, we weren't at anything, we weren't 6.8% versus 7.5%. Or were we that close to the limit? Because we say we're allowed to have 7.5% of the municipal valuation as a maximum allowable debt. And then I think what we're trying to say is we're at 6.8%.
That might be, well, Megan entered that information. John would know.
So we could have up to $75 million in debt.
That's right.
And we were only at 6.8% of the 75
Of the
million.
75, that's right.
So we are so far below the
Right.
7.5%.
We're not highly leveraged.
But I'd probably
Yeah.
phrase that differently.
That's what I was wondering, because it's a little,
It makes it seem as though, geez, we're really
we're
close.
almost right there, yeah.
We are not anywhere near,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, because we could come up with the percentage that's the true percentage that would show we're at like 1 tenth of 1% of that or
Exactly.
something, whatever
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And I think she puts that in the budget book, if I remember correctly, that number, but I could see how that would be.
Yeah, I mean, because I know that we are well below what we could do, but when I was reading this, I'm like,
Yeah, right.
numbers are too close together.
They are, yeah, exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think there was another place where that 6.8. Well. Oh, and maybe this has to do with some of the things that Megan added. So we had these questions you noted from the state, and are those some things that Megan's given you some information on?
Which section?
She says, question to answer from state, you say this, how will future capital investments identified in the plan be funded? See how old the version is I've got?
Right here. Oh, the CIP, under the CIP?
Yeah.
That's what this one is.
Yeah, analysis.
Oh, yeah, no, this was just for John and Megan, if they wanted to update or change any of this. And on that one that I have now, Megan did not want to change any of that.
Okay, so this is as is.
That's as is.
Okay. And then this last question under borrowing capacity. I thought that did relate
Yeah.
to this whole 7.5% versus,
Yep, so those, what Megan provided is the same section up there, so that just needs to be reworded.
to make clear that we have so much
Yeah.
borrowing capacity,
And probably can be merged with that other one, since,
that's true, good
Yeah.
point. Because that really is the answer to that question. And who's answering the question about how have efforts been made by the community to participate in or explore more sharing capital investments with neighboring communities?
what Megan had said, the town of Rockport has attempted sharing capital investment with neighboring communities with no luck due to conflicting interest.
That's
I think we
accurate.
keep it soft. Yeah.
Accurate?
Yeah.
It's
We
not,
don't need to go into detail.
No.
no, so it's not the place for it.
Okay. Yeah, and then then at the back here, we have these tables.
Mm-hmm.
And are these from the old plan, are they new ones that you're, and you
So,
say
let's
required
see.
by the state
The
for all of
first,
them?
the first, if you're on the implementation strategies F1, that one's required by the state to stand there. The rest of them, they're pulled from the last comp plan, merged with what the public engagement process was like.
From this time,
Yep, yep,
this,
yep,
this,
yep, yep.
this most recent
Mhm.
public engagement.
Yeah. So there was some stuff about utilizing TIF districts in a certain way, but I reworded that to be more appropriate. And then there was something specific in the last one that had grant pursuit for a specific thing. I'm more talking about it in a broad sense. And the last comp plan was very heavy on getting impact fees together. There's a way to do it, but not so heavily. And we're kind of in the beginning steps of that with the proposed ordinance amendments that are kind of coming your way.
Okay.
But it's something to keep in there. So if there's anything else in here that you might know of that you're interested on the finance side of that the town should pursue, then
Well,
the
I have a
strategy
question
would
about the
come in
reference to
here.
LD1.
Wait a second.
is To reduce Maine's tax burden by staying within LD1 spending limitations. We've made a decision as a town not to, I mean.
Oh, yeah, so that's interesting.
We're all over limiting spending, but
Okay.
we might have our own way of doing that.
So that was a policy set by the state for a requirement. So is there another way of wording it? What do you do instead of LD1?
We just manage our budget as narrow, as
So then however that should be
responsible as we
worded
can.
is how we'll word it.
Okay.
LD1 had just passed before that comp plan went into effect, so it was the new cool thing.
Right.
No, this is a requirement from the state.
So the policy,
currently.
we're required to state these policies
Yep.
this way, or at least to address these issues?
Well, we're gonna
Others are
get
pretty
creative with
soft.
it since we're not doing LD1. It'll be worded however y'all want it worded,
Yeah.
and then we'll deal with that when it comes.
Well, I like number one. We're going to finance existing and future facilities and services in a cost-effective manner. That's how we
Then,
run our budget.
and we will,
Be damned.
Well, artificial ones that don't really,
That's what.
yeah.
I'm gonna put a comment here, hold on a second.
Yeah, let's just note that. And then the last F4, establish a promotional program to cultivate potential donors.
Hold on a second.
Yes. The endowment.
All right, you said F4?
F4 caught my eye.
Yeah, so that was a item that was on the last comp plan as well.
We could just
I
write
didn't-
Richard Remsen's name next to that one. That was his,
Hey,
that was his
could
Oh,
baby.
that's, yeah, because we're
That was Richard's
going
baby.
to find a billionaire to fund our schools.
That's right.
Oh, yeah?
Taxes go down.
So, I mean, is it worth keeping in there as a possibility? Is it not?
I think
That's
it's a
the
little
question.
weird. I mean, we don't have to have it to do it, right? If we
No.
decide that we want to do some big opera house, something,
Yeah.
we'll. We're
Done.
always looking for potential donors,
No shortage, right.
fortunately for us, yeah.
All right.
And the wording of F3 is a little odd, by routinely cleaning document up, but.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worded however.
By updating as necessary or something.
Reviewing and updating as necessary.
Sure.
Ongoing. Okay.
Okay. Let's see, increase grant pursuit for town projects that benefit Rockport.
So that would include, Rockport only or a regional grant that would also benefit Rockport
Right, it's,
in some way, fashion, form, or another. If you wanted worded differently, it can be done.
might give you some way. Consider a program to charge impact fees for all new developments to cover costs of necessary improvements needed to accommodate such new development. I absolutely agree with that. Anybody, I didn't mean to accommodate that. It's so exciting, I
I'm
know.
enthralled.
You had more than a note card, so it's okay.
Yeah. You get the prize
You get-
today.
that's right. Need more note cards, Michael.
Nerdy, yes, I need. Anybody else have any comments on these sections? And this is an ongoing, I know Orion, you're sort of shooting for the end of the month to have the draft document done, is that right?
Of everything that I can have done by the end of this month, it'll be in a draft document for your February meeting, so you can kind of see it in a
Great.
very rough draft, but you'll see it. And then just keep going as hard as I can on it.
Yeah, yeah, and so that would mean that all of us, if you see something out, if you didn't have a chance before tonight, if you're interested at all, you can always get any comments over to Orion over
Absolutely.
the next couple weeks on that. So are there some sections you cannot get done for some reason, or?
I just finished one. I'm on to the next one, which is transportation. And in the beginning of it, it's like, all right, let me see how fast I can get done. And if as long as the state didn't change where the data was placed the last time I accessed it, then yeah, I can knock it out quickly.
Okay.
But when they update their website, they hide their data.
Yeah.
So
And you could put placeholders in, I suppose, for that kind of thing too, if you aren't able to find, like dropping in a data table, is that what you mean?
No, I'm talking about, just finding the data. Like I've found it before on a last comp plan that I was working on in another municipality. And from that point to today, the website has been updated and the data has been moved elsewhere. So finding it is the time-consuming bit. But once I find it, then it's easy to go from there.
Okay.
Yeah. I just didn't think they would update their website since then. You know, I didn't
That's
see.
pretty uncommon for them,
Yeah.
updating a website for them.
It's extremely uncommon,
Yeah.
so that's the time-consuming hurdle,
Okay.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I was just suggesting if in order to get us a rough draft by our February meeting, if there's something like that you haven't been able to get your hands on, but the section can be drafted around it so that there's a missing data table or a missing whatever you're trying to find from the state. I'm just trying to give you, if there's some ways you can have placeholders,
Yeah,
because it's so easy to get
it's kind of hard because you need the data to then
to then
draw the
analyze it.
analysis.
Okay,
So I mean, it'd be more confusing than not.
okay.
So I'd rather, if the section isn't done, I would just say this section's still in the works, and then more to come.
So how many sections do you,
There's
Are there gonna
Is it 12 sections?
well, there's
In total?
13 in total. I'm pulling my checklist up, so
13 sections?
9, 11, so I've got 3 more.
3 more to do?
3 more to do.
Oh, that sounds very, very doable, right? Easy for me to say.
I've got 3 more to do. I'll tell you exactly what they are. When I get to it. Almost. That's a long list. All right, transportation is next. And then public facilities and services is next. And then it's the future land use planning section.
There's some biggies
Or,
there.
well, the existing land use plus future land use planning. So yeah, these are kind of the big ones. And then there's I just got to write up kind of, the public engagement process and then, like the committee structure, how that went.
Do we have, will there be what is the public engagement process? How does that look going forward?
Oh, going forward. It's just a public meeting. So, yeah, to just be as well advertised as we can make it. Public meeting, and people will show up and they'll voice their concern or hatred of it or what have you. And then the select board's gonna have to make a determination from that point on.
What's
if
the
anything-
timing for that meeting? When does that need to happen? So we then, just looking it out, getting this on the ballot in June.
Well, I mean, you can put it on the ballot and then, the public meeting can happen afterwards.
Oh, but I don't think would we do that?
No, I'm saying your timeline for the ballot, that timeline, that can happen, and then within that time frame, we can have our public meeting before June. So in
I see,
between.
so after April.
That's the
when we
only
put
way
it on
that
the
can work.
ballot.
You're not gonna get a public meeting before you need to make your
For the April 10th.
recommendation for the ballot, if you want it on the June ballot.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that some more, maybe.
Do you, and in terms of just, I'm thinking about that timetable. Is there do we need to line that up with the changes? It's a different process. I'm trying to remember this from a long time ago. But do we have to line that up with changes to ordinance change? Like, because there's a prescribed process for ordinance change and it needs to go to the planning board before. Is it in that, it's
Do you
not on
need
that same timetable, right? It's not, it doesn't have to go to the planning board for that same sort of review, right, as the land use ordinance?
My
If
recollection.
you don't know, it's okay.
I don't know that one off the top of my head. I do think it would be wise to have the planning board a part of that process.
Yeah, okay.
So you'll have a rough draft to us for our February 12th meeting. That's public, Anybody can see what that is
Right.
at that point, who's following this and interested in what's in there. And then we will, how do you go from rough draft to something you're really happy
Okay.
about and finalizing it?
Yeah.
Because we're probably not the people to do that for you.
Right.
We can
Well,
give
I
you
mean,
feedback on substantive matters, but in term, I don't know what rough draft means. Is it gonna be like
It's
final
going to
as
be
you're
a,
done, you've made your best shot at our comprehensive plan?
this is going to be taking all my Word documents, merging them together, and then
Mm-hmm.
you get that draft. I'll put page numbers on there for you.
Page
But-
numbers, and you'll go through it to make sure it all makes sense and,
Well,
right?
sure, but it's going to be, it's not going to be a draft as a comp plan draft would be, because a comp plan draft would be pretty workable in a final format. That'd be like a final draft. This one's going to be, I'm going to have like history section clumped together, so it's going to look pretty robust. And then each section in and of itself. So that's going to be the draft orientation of it. So when you read through it, you can kind of see it in that section. In the final draft of the comp plan, I guess, the bit that people are going to want to read, and not all the data, that's all going to be pulled up. And that's going to be in the, I guess, your main book. And the appendix is going to be all the rest of that data stuff.
So like the tree and softwood growth is gonna be off in
Yep,
the
all that stuff. If it's pertinent, it'll be included in the main part of it. If it's not pertinent, that needs to be highlighted, it's going to be in the appendix.
So how does that process happen? So once you would be waiting for our February 12th meeting to get just a read from us?
I would, yes.
And then is that when you turn it, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to also, since we still have a comp plan committee, they should see it to some
Right.
degree. And it would be good if they made a recommendation that, they're full support behind it. It's going to be tight, but
Yeah,
So if, in concept, if the board adopts in concept, the draft as put together in February, it goes to sort of that final process with the comp plan committee by the end of the month, let's say. So March 1, you have a wrong phrase, a complete document. I was gonna say comprehensive, but no, that's terrible. That really gives 6 weeks before the warrant's drafted and edits are possible of this final draft and whatever public process would take place of a final draft blessed in concept by the select board, but in format by the comprehensive plan committee to prepare, organize, and then come back to the board in a polished, beautiful document that we put on, for the voters to consider. Right? That's sort of, that 6 week window is tight. But,
see what we can do.
when we're taking a 200-page document, if we're, cutting it in half, if every section's like the governance section, right? And we're sort of shrinking them all
I
down,
mean,
Right.
they're all getting shrunken.
then, maybe
Might
that's
work.
not, that
Might
maybe,
work.
that's not impossible, It's the concepts really which will be the
that's where we should be having the discussion,
tough part,
yeah. And maybe
the
we
tough
wouldn't
part.
I
agree
agree with
on
that.
But we do have all the surveys, we know where the
Right.
town where the people who filled out surveys, and it was a pretty good response, right?
Yeah,
So we sort of have an idea, we know from those survey responses where the town wants this to
Right.
go.
exactly.
When were those surveys done?
Summer of 21 was the
It was
first
the
one,
first one, 21, and,
So.
Through the winter.
From then on.
22.
but then there was the public meetings that happened in 22
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
there
So-
were public meetings and.
They're a couple years old.
Okay.
But
That's valid.
Well, and there
That's the
weren't any
direction.
surprises in what we heard from the survey.
No,
It's
no, no.
Consistent with, we want a balance. People
Right.
like what we have here in Rockport. A little better's okay, but let's not get carried away.
Right.
Yeah, we like what we have.
Right. And to that point, the other part of this too is the community said balance. And then we had a legislature that said, we're gonna tell you what your balance is gonna be based upon housing. And yes, we feel those pressures of housing, but we had a legislature that said, no, you're gonna take it, I don't care
Right.
what you want, this is what you're gonna get. And so there is a little bit of that somewhat, it does upset the balance a bit.
Right, because
It
we are,
can.
we are having to do things that maybe some people in the community would say, well, that's not what I thought of as
Right.
balance.
Wastewater, how we have to handle that is, maybe we were in balance before, but our hands are somewhat forced to
Yeah.
consider things we might not have thought of 3 years ago even,
Yeah.
But it's you hope at the end of this, everyone has, we talked about this last time, but just every time we talk about comp plans, the 3 people who are listening, this is it 3?
4.
4, sorry, 4th person. The 4 people listening, again, this is really about us getting a mandate from the community that says what they want, what that balance means. What does that mean to the select board, to the planner, to the town manager, we need that so that we can operate and respect the wishes of our community. And, we'll see. Check back in 10 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, I appreciate, I know that's going to take a lot of work on your part, but I think it's really important for our
No, it
community. These
is.
surveys are starting to get old, and, we started a process, and I do think we owe it to our community to get the process done and present them
Sure.
the final product, so thank you for working on that.
Absolutely.
All
I
right,
wanna-
anything else on the comp plan?
It was just helpful to realize that there are imposed requirements from above,
Yes,
that we might not have been thinking of.
right,
And theoretically, those are imposed because it's good for the state, for all of us.
the state believes it,
collectively.
yes, exactly. But
Right.
I don't think any money comes with those dictates.
Right, but, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
great, thanks, Ryan. on
You're
that.
welcome.
so no motion really needed for this, is there?
No, no, just a discussion item.
Good.
Okay, select board liaison reports. Kim, you're like in the thick of it. I don't even know, you're like a whole separate agenda item, or a whole workshop.
Well, we haven't had any meetings. We're supposed to have one at some point. I don't think a date has been determined for the EMS review meeting.
John shaking his head.
So I don't have a whole lot to report on.
Okay. Great.
As the liaison for the comprehensive plan committee, I think my report is done. Thank you,
Perfect.
Orion
Well done.
and Denise.
Okay. Eric, any reports? I know planning board is moving forward on changes to the land use ordinance. Those will be,
That will be before you in February.
okay. February's, we're going to rest up. February's going to be a big agenda.
There's a lot.
Okay, and I guess did I have, go ahead.
Yeah, last meeting, I think we had talked, I think, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago at this point, we talked about having a conversation with the school board and the superintendent about school matters. So they, I was just emailing Maria Libby and met with her last week. She and Denise and I had talked on Friday, and she's able to make it to your meeting in March.
Okay,
So she's planning to be there. I think the business manager, Peter Warren, will also be with her, and I'm not sure if board members, but I explained to her part of the difficulties. They have a a district-wide meeting for select board members and the like to talk to them about, and to talk about what's in their budget. The last 2 years, it has exactly fallen on the same night that the select board's meeting to decide their budget occurred. So she understood that, was glad to participate and, you know, sort of helped to be a part of that. So good news on that end, and
And
hopefully.
is it up to her to contact the board? Because we have actually school board member
Yep.
representatives for Rockport, right?
Yeah.
How that-
Yeah, we could certainly individual, I mean, they sort of,
If she's fine contacting them and inviting
Yeah.
them, that's fine with me.
it's somewhat if someone had contacted us and I'd reach out to the 5 of you, but
Yeah,
either
no,
way. I
we
mean,
don't-
I told her
totally
we'd have as, we have plenty of room for all of them, so
Yep.
if the whole board wanted to come, that'd be great.
I think that's really important. I mean, I don't know what percentage of our budget it's going to be, but, you know, it's generally been like 69% of our budget has been the school budget. So when people care about their taxes, worry about their taxes and feel like they are having a hard time affording them, the portion that we can do much about is actually quite small. So this is the one that's important.
And there's some major capital needs they also have that have not really been part of the conversation with their budgets in recent past, but 20-plus-year-old building, almost 25-year-old building at the high school, those issues are starting to come home to roost. So I think we'll hear more about that in March. And I'm not sure how much that will be part of their budget, but some of those issues are starting to come to the fore. So look to hear more about that.
Good, well, thanks for getting that set up, because I
Yeah.
think that's important.
I just want to add, Conservation Commission.
Yes.
I can't really articulate all the good work that they're working towards, but there's a meeting Wednesday, I'll be at that one again.
Okay, great.
They have been doing a lot, you know, working on testing the water qualities in the harbors and in some of the ponds and lakes, and they got a lot going on.
Yeah,
So I want to give a shout out to that. And also, they're working on putting together another speaker series, which they did this past year, too.
right, over at the library. Here.
Here,
Yeah.
yeah. And some other things like that, so.
Great.
We did get a final date for the WRF, the PER for the WRF.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the date as I'm talking to everyone right
January
now.
19th or something?
Yeah,
I
what,
think it was,
or was it the 30th?
I think the 19th.
I think it was
It was
earlier
January
than we
19th.
expected. But,
Why do I
don't
have
have
one
my
of the
stuff.
For the
30th?
final, when we'll get it, a copy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
when you want.
oh, maybe the committee's getting it.
The committee's getting it,
on
yeah.
yeah.
So by the next board meeting, there will be a WRF committee with PER in hand. And, you know, if there's, I know Denise, you've been at a lot of the meetings, and Eric and Michael has. But I think, you know, we have that, the VPI is starting to run, so there's a lot of things.
Yeah, a
sort
lot
of-
of stuff's all coming,
Yeah, a lot of things coming to the fore, and, you know, I'm not sure any of it is necessarily budget process related, but it's sort of all sort of coming down together at the same point in time, and so it's gonna be an interesting spring around here. There'll be no shortage of things to talk about.
it is great stuff, you know, because it's sort of just looking at where we are and what changes we want,
Yeah,
that we have to make changes, but,
years worth of work going into these things, so it's
Exactly, yeah.
fun to see it come to fruition.
yeah, and the VPI, yeah, a lot of very positive stuff coming out of that, and some of it not costing very much money to make big changes and improvements in pedestrian and bike access, so that's exciting.
Nice thing, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, mine, well, VPI, library committee, chugging along. Every time the stock market goes up, our endowment goes up, more money to help pay for library bills. And Parks Committee, we've heard. So I think that's all good stuff. Anything else? We're ready to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
I move the board adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
Come on, somebody second.
Go, Kim, go.
Second.
Okay,
That,
Sure.
I
second,
got Kim.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Yep.
Yeah, we should
Unanimous.
release the two of you. Well, Kim, you look, I know you're, anyway, I hope you both get better soon.
Thank you.
Eric looks like he should go back to bed, but. And appreciate you making the effort. I know when you're not feeling well, it's a lot to do this.
I'm feeling fine.
Good.
Good. The quarantine.
Yeah, just the test results, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Take care, you guys. And I guess there's stuff to sign, so if
Yep.
you pop into the office,
Take your time, Kim.
Oh,
Take your
no, I'll
time.
come right in tomorrow. I'm free tomorrow.
Somebody will hand it to you. They'll have a hazmat suit on, but
Hazmat suit.
right, remember like at the dump where they would hand out this long pole where you could put your money in? And
oh,
they-
yes.
that day.
Oh, gosh.
That's funny.
Okay.